Hello and welcome to another episode of the Buckle Bomb Show here on Bomb Media Productions. I'm your host Bobby, and I'm so happy to be here to talk professional wrestling with you here on this glorious WrestleMania Backlash Sunday. I'm here, as always, with my broadcast partner, Anthony Roan. Tony, how you doing, buddy?
Happy Sunday. Welcome to another edition of the Buckle Bomb Show. Let's see what we got to talk about today, Bobby. I can't wait.
We got quite a bit to talk about today, so let's get this show on the road. The first thing we can talk about, we'll do what we normally do. I need to let you know I did not watch a whole lot of wrestling this week. I watched Raw live. That was 6 days ago. A lot's happened since then. So I'm going to be relying on Tony and on my recaps to get through our reviews of Raw, mostly SmackDown and Dynamite. I didn't watch it all, and all that stuff. So we'll go ahead and switch on over here and start talking about Raw. It started off with, I actually like this segment. The Bloodline came out to the ring, small little promo, acknowledge me, and then out from behind the Bloodline come RK Bro, and they give RKOs to each of the Usos, and then stand there and back Roman Reigns into the corner. And out comes Drew McIntyre with his sword. He throws the sword down and goes in, and then we get into a little bit of a brawl. What do you think of this opening segment for Raw?
You know, for an opening segment for Raw, and we'll get into it later on with SmackDown, it was good. I think it's a little overplayed now that we've done it twice in 1 week, especially being the go-home show for both Raw and SmackDown before WrestleMania Backlash. However, nonetheless, you know, I think at this point we're looking at maybe WWE getting the 6-man titles before AEW rolls them out.
All right, we'll move on here. Next, we had Kevin Owens and the Alpha Academy would, in another 6-man tag team match, defeat Ezekiel and the Street Profits after a backstage promo. You know what? I said I watched Raw, and I watched it live. I don't really remember this match. What did you think about it?
This was a very forgettable match, which is a shame because, you know, Kevin Owens, maybe one of the GOATs of independent wrestling. Street Profits, you know, they're definitely up-and-coming tag team. You know how I feel about Alpha Academy. The whole Elias Ezekiel thing, that's yet to be determined. But for whatever reason, these 6 people just did not click on any sort of level to make this a match worth remembering.
It was Gable of the Alpha Academy to get the pin on Ezekiel after a distraction by KO. Veer Mahan would come out and defeat Bart Hansen. A little interesting thing here with Bart Hansen, the local jobber talent that they hired for the night to come up against, make Veer look like a monster. They had him grab the mic and cut a little babyface promo with the crowd and talk about his home crowd, which is perfectly fine and normal, except it was on TV. Normally that would happen during the commercial segment. You get the crowd juiced for him, and then the big heel comes out, or the other way around. If it's a heel monster or a babyface monster, you know, you have the local guy Raz on the crowd. But here they actually put it on TV, a little bit interesting. I guess they needed to draw out that 3-hour Raw only for Veer to come out and kick his face in as he should. What do you think of this?
Let me just remind you that many a moon ago, there was a no-chin wonder that came out on the Raw and said any man with 2 hands has a fighting chance. And that somehow dragged out a career in professional wrestling for one James Ellsworth. Yeah. Do I think they were trying to strike gold twice with that? Maybe, but it's also, you know, hometown guy, probably never going to get that chance again. This whole Veer thing, I like how they're letting it breathe and they are building him up as this unstoppable monster. regardless of how tall Veer is, he's one of those dudes that he's wider than a door frame. So just keep feeding him people, and maybe within the next month or so, we're gonna actually get to see him challenge somebody worth a damn and
Yeah,
put him in a good program.
I think, obviously he's not going to be on Backlash here, but I think the next, maybe not pay per view, but I think over the next few weeks after Backlash, we should have some sort of bit of a feud for him, someone significant that he can go up against and beat. Maybe the first time someone gets a little bit of an upper hand on him to finish out, not to finish out the storyline, but to finish out a segment on Raw. And then that leads into a big blow off match, either the next week on Raw or on the pay per view, whatever the case may be, and make Veer look strong there. After that, we got AJ Styles and Damian Priest. If AJ Styles would win, Priest would be banned from ringside for tonight's match against Edge. AJ Styles would go over. What do you think of this match?
AJ Styles, he can make anyone look like $1 million in the ring. Although something interesting with that match did happen.
But in the post-match shenanigans, you know, as a big Bullet Club fan like this, of course, AJ Styles, Edge would attack AJ Styles. Finn Balor would come out to make the save. AJ Styles and Finn Balor would be in the ring, and after, of course, a big couple of weeks for the Bullet Club and their anniversary, they did a little Wolfpack kiss in the ring, with some acknowledgement from WWE. I know you love that.
Yeah, it was really something, but I think it's foreshadowing, unfortunately. That's not going to last too long. You have Damian Priest banned from ringside. I think this is the perfect opportunity to have. You can't have Edge lose this match at Backlash right now.
No.
While they're trying to build up this stable. And I think they actually have a name now. I remember them saying it.
Judgment Day.
Judgment Day. Hey, they own the rights to the pay-per-view name. I get it. But now you have Damian Priest banned from ringside. You're going to have Finn Balor come out, act like he's there in support of AJ. Because of Finn Balor, Edge is going to get the victory. Mark my words.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good guess there. And of course, we have our WrestleMania Backlash coming at the end of, our WrestleMania Backlash preview coming at the end of this show. And we'll talk about it more in depth there, but I think that's a good theory. Speaking of theory, The Miz in theory would defeat Mustafa Ali in a 2-on-1 handicap match. A little surprised Mustafa Ali didn't go over here, though it was a handicap match, so you can kind of get away with, even though not making Mustafa Ali look like crazy superhuman. And then, of course, after the match, once again, Ciampa would appear and inexplicably attack Mustafa Ali. What do you think of all this?
You know, just like you, I'm a little perplexed about why you don't put Ali over with this. I think another thing with Ciampa coming out and attacking Ali week after week, that kind of puts the kibosh on the theory that he will be joining the Judgment Day, at least for now. Yeah, man. Theory is an up-and-comer, and anytime he gets on the microphone, he's on the same level as The Miz, I think. So just the lead up to that match with the Miz TV segment, it was entertaining, for sure. The match, again, trying to stay positive. WWE trying to appease a large array of an audience.
So, it was a handicap match. I don't mind Ali losing here, because he still looked fairly strong in what was a short match against two people, but it just was too much for him. And then, I would imagine this is going to lead eventually to a U.S. title match against Theory, in which Ciampa will then interfere in. Because I don't think you take the belt off Theory right now. But obviously, Ali came back for a reason. You got to imagine he was coaxed back with some good story that they're going to do. And I would imagine it's this feud with Ciampa. So We'll go
Yeah, it's
ahead.
almost like they're turning into like a Vince McMahon hired gun angle.
Maybe. Maybe. All right, we'll move on from there. More 24/7 title shenanigans in a backstage segment. Nikki ASH would defeat Dana Brooke for the title backstage, and that would lead to a match in the ring where Dana Brooke would win the title back, and then more shenanigans where a number of people, including R-Truth, would try to roll up Dana Brooke for the title, and then Reggie actually rolled Brooke up, but then kind of let her go, or she kicked out. It was hard to tell exactly what happened there, but then Dana Brooke would get angry, walk over to the announce table, grab a mic, and say, "I want a divorce." What do you think of all this?
Well, I think Dana Brooke's single now. Let's go back to the Batista Dana Brooke storyline that we never actually got to see play out because of COVID. You know, no, again, more 24/7 shenanigans. I like how they're kind of setting up a storyline from the 24/7 championship right now with afterwards you had Nikki ASH and Dewdrop in a backstage segment that kind of teased them getting back together. Another team that would actually make sense for the women's tag team division. So I actually can say with a straight face, I didn't mind this.
All right. Surprised to hear that there. All right. Uh, then we would have a Seth Rollins appreciation night in response to the last few Cody Rhodes segments. Cody Rhodes would, of course, crash the segment, and they would have a little bit of a promo duel. What'd you think of this segment?
I thought Cody Rhodes looked like he raided John Cena's wardrobe from 2006. Remember that Burberry suit that he wore to the Hall of Fame induction ceremony, and he just got tailored. I
It
mean, you know,
it did look like he was trying to compete with the Seth Rollins over the top wardrobe there a little bit.
oh, absolutely. We definitely had a suit off in the middle of the ring. Um, it, I'm getting, like I said last week, all the talk. I just want the match. Um, at this point,
It's getting it tonight. Main event, it looks like tonight.
yeah, it's looking like it's main event tonight, which good for them. They both deserve it. Um, however, if you're wanting to make a push to become the world heavyweight champion or WWE champion or universal, wherever the fuck they're calling this clustered mess of a disaster with the belts right now, um, it's really hard pressed for me to believe that the main event scene could be viable for either one of these two because we're not seeing anything out of them in ring that would make you believe that they're viable competitors for that spot.
All right. Up next, we had Bobby Lashley defeating Cedric Alexander in a pretty quick match here, using a spear and the Hurt Lock. What'd you think about this?
You know, quick throwaway match. We're getting Bobby Lashley back to his dominance, showing that he is the top babyface in the company. Uh, yeah, I didn't mind it. I know what they're doing with it. It kind of sucks for someone like Cedric Alexander, who has all the potential in the world to be a big star for WWE. But
Obviously, Cedric
there's
Alexander had been a part of the Hurt business, and that was a pretty good run until they broke it up, maybe prematurely. And that was part of this whole angle. Cedric Alexander was trying to get back in with MVP and Omos, and to try and impress MVP to get back in MVP's good graces. Cedric went out to try and defeat Bobby Lashley and was not successful. And then that would lead into our main event for Raw. Three-person tag team match, or excuse me, a six-person tag team match. Bianca Belair, Liv Morgan, and Asuka versus Becky Lynch, Rhea Ripley, and Sonya Deville. Liv Morgan would get the pin on Sonya Deville. What do you think of this match?
first off, 6-man tag team matches. I think you and I could both agree between AEW and WWE, we're kind of over it at this point, right? We've just seen it so much. However, if you want a 6-person tag match to go right, this is how you do it. You take somebody that the audience has been sympathizing with in Liv Morgan. You want her to have that big singles push going over on top of somebody that is so loathed and despised by the WWE universe.
Yeah, well, I mean,
It's actually good
yeah,
storytelling, in my opinion.
it was the layout of this match was good. Um, they each got a little bit of each heel got a little bit of heat. Each babyface got a little bit of shine, and yeah, the finish to the match of Sonya Deville having her feet on the ropes for a pin of Liv, and then the referee seeing it and Sonya going, "Count! I'm a WWE official. Count it." Not tonight. Adam Pearce said, "When you're competing, you're not an official." And so the referee refused to count. Then Bianca Belair threw her legs off the ropes, distracted Sonya Deville, and that allowed Liv to get the roll up, which allows Liv to look good going into continuing her feud with Rhea Ripley. So a lot of good stuff here. Obviously, it also continued the feud between Lynch and Asuka. Some good stuff here. All right. We will move on to Friday Night SmackDown, which you told me pre-show was actually you enjoyed more than Raw, which was a little bit surprising because I think Raw has been a slightly better show lately. All right, so we'll go through right at the start. And again, I didn't see any of this, so I'm relying on Tony and the recap here on WWE.com to get me through everything. So I wasn't on the right page before we started, but the start of the show was was the Charlotte Flair segment. I did see a little brief bit of this with Charlotte Flair. Had a Oh, was it an actual match? I guess what I saw was after the match. It ended in a no finish. I do know Charlotte Flair would say, "Hey, come on, you tapped out before the clock hit zeros last week," and of course she would then attack Aaliyah. Ronda Rousey would come out, and it was look. It would be a brawl, and then all the officials would come out and separate them. There's something off here. It was evident, I think, in the build-up to WrestleMania, and then in their match at Mania, and then continuing since Mania. There's just something that isn't clicking with these two. Some sort of chemistry that's not there. I don't feel this match. And
we've discussed this at length before about how much both of us did not enjoy their match at Mania.
yeah,
We both agreed that the chemistry was off, the timing was off, there was something wrong, something missing. However,
which was a little bit of a minority opinion, but yeah, it felt off to me. And every segment with them together, when they have to have some sort of physical interaction, feels just a little bit off. And
now, however, I'm always here to give the devil his due. That segment, if not for events that happened later on in the programming, actually worked and actually made this feud look like a viable feud that could make money. Of course, being
see again,
it
like
was
I
the
said,
first pull apart.
Like I said, yeah, it was a pull apart, and on paper, yeah, it was a good idea. Like I said, it was still because I do remember seeing this brief clip. Again, to me, I didn't feel the chemistry. I liked the idea behind it. To me, it still kind of fell flat, at least to me.
Yeah, and that's the thing about it. And the beautiful part about wrestling, the beautiful part about us doing the show, you're gonna have differences of opinions.
Oh, absolutely,
We just want to respect our opinions.
100%.
Come on, there in that wrestling community, get together, be like me and Bobby.
It's all subjective, 100%. Yeah. All right, we would move on to SmackDown. Shayna Baszler would defeat Sasha Banks in a match. Obviously, this would be pushing forward their tag team title feud. What do you think of this?
I'm very confused right now. I don't know if they're trying to push Shayna Baszler as a babyface right now, but if they are, I think it's going to be a huge mistake.
No, she won by cheating, so.
I'm saying though, in like other aspects of like how she's interacting with her other peers and things of that nature, the training montages that they keep showing her in, it just then she goes into the cheating in the match to win. there are certain aspects that I'm just very confused on about this rivalry. So that's just my opinion on it. Leave it at that.
All right, that would move on to. It looks like an in-ring segment between Madcap Moss and Happy Corbin. What happened here?
All right, well, I don't know who in WWE Creative has such a hard-on for Happy Talk right now, but we're getting it every week. And then, of course, Happy Corbin was interrupted by Madcap being up on screen, and then from being up on screen to actually coming down. I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. This is doing nothing for me. There's zero excitement building for this.
Yeah, I do not care. I think Madcap Moss has a look. I think he's got talent. I think if you can get him away from this gimmick a little bit that he's had with Happy, once he gets out of this feud and build him up a little more, he could be something. And I'd be excited to see that.
I literally hope that after tonight, this is the last time we have an interaction between Madcap and Happy Corbin for a year plus. And then something changes in creative where we get him out of this stupid gimmick and this stupid outfit that they have him wearing. And let him go. I mean, he does look like he could be at the level of the Veer McMahon, like size-wise, and just let him go on a little bit of his own tear.
Right. I hear you. Up next, we would have Gunther defeating Drew Gulak. Drew Gulak was back in the ring this week, huh? And then got beat up by Gunther pretty quick here, from what I see. What do you think of this?
Yeah, it was definitely a throwback to 80s professional wrestling where a USA chant got started. And this was actually the first time in a while that, or at least on the main roster, they had Gunther come out and just look absolutely incredibly unstoppable. If they're going to continue this angle with him, he may be in the World Championship picture within the next 6-7 months.
Well, I mean, there's only one world title now. Hopefully it stays that way. So there's a lot of people competing for that belt, but he could definitely get up there into that upper mid-card for sure. I'd love to see that. He certainly is deserving of that. Up next, we'd have a tag team match. Sheamus and Ridge Holland would defeat Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods. Apparently, all this time, Butch was under the ring. What do you think of this?
You know, again, this is another feud that I am absolutely over. However, I didn't mind the finish of this. They actually, I believe Kofi was the one that took the L for the team in this match. This is the tables match.
Oh yeah, it was a tables match. Yep.
Yeah. And even though Xavier was the one that got put through the table by Holland, I believe, it didn't make Xavier look weak. It actually made the New Day more. You had more sympathy for the New Day after the match. It was really interesting how they played it out, and I actually enjoyed it despite being over this angle.
All right, here's where I get to say I told you so. Because I did hear about this. Or was this... Didn't she come out in front of the crowd? Maybe this isn't it. It looks like this is just a little backstage segment.
So here's what happened. We got a backstage segment, and then she came out. The interesting part behind it was, again, I'm confused as hell.
I saw it coming. To me, it was obvious.
Well, they built her up in all these promo packages, which really did tug at your heartstrings.
It was so over the top. It was so obvious she was fishing for attention. Like, to me, it was classic heel stuff. And to see the surprise and shock, because again, I didn't watch it, but to see the shock of everyone when she came out and was heelish, I'm like, this is exactly what they were going for. Like,
I didn't think that anybody was shocked. People are actually still supporting her, even though they were told to give her the respect that she deserves. It was very bizarro world. Like, what the hell's going on with this? But to a degree, I will give you your due. You were right. Okay, I wanted Lacey Evans to come back and be like the end-all be-all babyface in the women's division, but damn it, I'll give you your credit, and she is one hell of a heel to begin with, anyways. So let's just see where this goes.
Like to me, it was just way all those, and they kept going and they kept going, and it was just way too saccharine sweet and over the top for it to be legitimate to me. That they were really, despite the stories being real, for that to be a legitimate babyface push. And I did see like other YouTubers going, "Wait, what? She's a heel? What's going on here? This isn't what I thought." And to me, it was people who have been in wrestling, and to me, it was just so clear and obvious that they were taking it in this direction, and she was being a heel. I guess I'm being a heel here, making myself sound smarter than everyone else, but it was just so obvious to me. I'm sorry.
Listen, man, you're the That's So Raven of WWE, and I'll give you your credit.
All right, and from there we would go to Sami Zayn versus Shinsuke Nakamura. Sami Zayn would win by count out. Let's see what would happen here. Oh yeah, what happened to this match? Why was Shinsuke counted out?
So I'm gonna give the credit to WWE. This was actually a really good match. In terms of long-term storytelling, you're not giving up on the fact that Shinsuke Nakamura is actually in the title picture right now against Roman. Basically, how this was set up was there was a plot for Shinsuke to want to come after Roman Reigns. So Sami Zayn, being the rat that he is, even though he claims he's not on Twitter, went to Paul Heyman. They set this match up as a proving point to get Sami Zayn in the good graces of the bloodline because he wants that protection from Drew McIntyre. Sami Zayn threw one of the most vicious haluva kicks I've ever seen outside of the ring. Shinsuke was like held up on the barricade and Sami threw it, and that's what caused the count out. But it was a really enjoyable match. It's setting up the long-term storytelling of Shinsuke being in that spot, Drew McIntyre and Sami Zayn's feud not being over, and then looking for the bloodline for protection. It's pretty cool how they're pulling this all together.
Okay. Interesting, because it seemed like before, and you said it's pretty cool how they're pulling all this together. Certainly, it seemed like last week we didn't know where we were going with the bloodline with Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre and Shinsuke, because they had a segment with Shinsuke before, and obviously now they're starting to tie that in, now that they know where they're going, at least through tonight. And of course, that would bring up the end of SmackDown, a face-off between Drew McIntyre and RK Bro and the Bloodline. What happened here? How did SmackDown end?
Well, as I alluded to at the beginning of our talk about SmackDown, this was the one thing that really kind of killed it for me. Not only did we get a repeat of what they did to open up the least watched Raw of the year, they stole the thunder from Charlotte and Ronda by having a big pull-apart brawl to close out the show. Not really getting an A for effort here on this one. However, I think how I feel about this echoes amongst a lot of wrestling fans right now, where we had something going into WrestleMania Backlash outside of the Cody versus Seth match that actually brought intrigue. Unfortunately, I feel like once they added Roman and Drew into this match, nobody gives a shit at this point. So I don't understand why they're trying to push it so hard to like kind of force people to want to care about it. But again, if you saw the beginning of Raw this week, you saw the end of SmackDown.
Well, we'll go ahead and talk about it here. There was a report, I think out of the Observer this week, that the original plan was to have Drew and Roman Reigns in a singles match for the title at Backlash tonight. But they were like, because I do still think that's their plan for Clash at the Castle, which is 4 months away. So, trying to stretch the story out to there, plus the fact the way the report went was we're in that post WrestleMania slump right now where there's not as much interest in WWE in the product right now as there will be in a few months when we get back into the summer and things heat back up and we get into that UK pay-per-view. So to give that match away right now on a pay-per-view that doesn't really mean all that much, they decided to go this route instead, even though it kind of screwed up what they had already built up pretty well in that tag team unification match. And then they sort of pivoted here. We'll see what happens. Obviously, I think here you ended SmackDown with Roman Reigns getting the Claymore kick to the face. Baby faces look strong to end going at the go home show, going into the pay-per-view. So we'll talk about what we think happens there on our preview later tonight or later in the show. But I think that's a big hint as to what's going to happen tonight. We'll go ahead and move on to AEW and we'll talk about Dynamite. Again, I didn't see this show at all, so I have no idea what happened, other than I know who the mystery opponent was for Wardlow. Obviously, I'd heard about that. But we'll go ahead and continue on. It looks like we started with an Owen Hart Foundation tournament qualifier match. Bobby Fish versus Jeff Hardy. What happened here?
So it wasn't so much the match itself that was intriguing. Yes, it was a decent match, especially when you consider how old Jeff Hardy is now, but he's still flipping and flying through the ring. However, there were certain spots, like when he went to go hit a swanton, and you saw how stiff his body was doing the movements, that you realize, oh shit, I'm older, so that means Jeff Hardy's now older. However, the most intriguing part was Jeff Hardy goes over. The Undisputed Elite comes out to check on Bobby Fish after the match, and then the Young Bucks come out. The Young Bucks and the Hardy Boys have a little bit of a face-off in the middle of the ring, kind of alluding to a storyline that's been going on Being the Elite, their YouTube show over the last couple weeks, where the Hardys are just trying to get in the heads of the Young Bucks over and over and over again, and how successful they're being with it. Obviously leading to a build-up to the inevitable and highly anticipated Hardys versus Young Bucks.
Yeah, that's a match I know a lot of people have been wanting for years and years. Of course, me not caring about the Young Bucks and knowing that the Hardys will probably go along with some of their flippy shit. I don't know if I care too much, but it'll be a big draw for sure.
This is actually going to be Hardys versus Young Bucks 2, because the Hardys wrestled the Young Bucks at Supercard of Honor in Lakeland the night before WrestleMania was in Orlando, and they made their debut.
Mm-hmm. All right, so after that we had a 6-man tag team match, except if you look right here on their AEW's page, they're calling it a trios match, which might hint at things coming in the future. The Butcher, Blade, and Angelico versus the Blackpool Combat Club. I'm sure Blackpool Combat Club went over here. What do you think of this match?
It was a really good match. Okay, let me rephrase that. It's what you're expecting out of a Blackpool Combat Club match now. The one thing I really appreciated about this match was it gave Angelico a chance to shine. Granted that his partner, Jack Evans, recently released from AEW. So I'm happy that at least see Angelico get some time on Dynamite. My prediction's coming true with Willer Yuta. Each week he's getting the shit kicked out of him less and less and less. Like he's actually learning from William Regal and the rest of Blackpool Combat Club. Before the match itself, it was a very impassioned promo that was shared earlier in the day on Twitter about not stabbing your enemy, but cutting them on the face so the scar's always there, and learning how to actually cause and inflict pain on your opponent. So yeah, they're building Willer Yuta right now to be an absolute beast, which just to me at least adds more intrigue into the best of Super Juniors and that B block that's going to feature Willer Yuta.
Okay, yeah, and Danielson would get the tap out on Angelico there. Excalibur would say at commentary, "Is there any trio hotter than the Blackpool Combat Club?" But we can talk about where they're going with that in a little segment we got in a piece of news after we get through Dynamite and Rampage. Let's see. Tony Schiavone was backstage with FTW champ Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs. Looks like a little interview, couple of interview segments here. What do you think? Anything interesting here happen?
Swerve Strickland came up with Keith Lee. They confronted Team Taz. They called out Ricky Starks for never defending the FTW Championship. So I believe at Dynamite this coming week, the FTW Championship will be on the line. Swerve Strickland versus Ricky Starks. That's a match that I'm really looking forward to.
All right. And then after that, we would get Wardlow versus MJF's mystery opponent, W. Morrissey, would come out, and boy, was he looking good. The former Big Cass. I saw that it was W. Morrissey. I don't know what happened in this match. I would imagine there was some sort of schmoz, because I don't think you'd want Morrissey to necessarily get the L here. But what happened in this match?
So Wardlow did end up going over clean, but for a lot of the match, W. Morrissey dominated. And I mean, dominated Wardlow to the point where I was pretty sure that they were going to put Morrissey over. However, there was a lot of interesting spots in the match that weren't scripted. It was a lot of crowd-based interaction. 50% of the crowd saying we want Enzo, the other 50% saying no, we don't, to the point where Kaz got pissed off and did his little Enzo dance outside of the ring, and then kind of told Enzo to forget about it. Yeah, and then Wardlow ended up going over clean with just one power bomb this time, which I thought was interesting. But then you think about the size of W. Morrissey and the actual amount of mass and muscle he's put on since leaving WWE. Not surprising he settled with one.
I like that it was just one, because I think that's one of the problems with modern wrestling is just the constant kicking out of finishers and way too many false finishes. I think that needs to be cut down somewhat. I love this is a Wardlow powerbomb, and it is devastating, and it even put out this guy. I like that. And correct me if I'm wrong, is W. Morrissey, is he still signed by Impact? Was this just a little trade? Or is W. Morrissey now an AEW? I didn't see any graphic that he's all elite.
Well, that's interesting. And I don't know if you've seen any of this or not. There's allegedly a lot of Impact contracts that are in limbo right now, including W. Morrissey's. Tony Khan, I believe on Busted Open Radio this week, said that W. Morrissey is somebody that he would be really interested in having coming to AEW once the contract situation with Impact gets figured out.
I do know there was a report that WWE saw his debut here on Dynamite and were like, "Holy shit, look at this big bastard." So yeah, there was a quote from someone, from a WWE official, probably a Bruce Pritchard or someone, that said, "Holy crap, look at this guy. He looks fantastic." And he does. He looks really good. A lot better than he did as Big Cass in WWE. So I think
it's the power of sobriety, my friend. I mean, some people actually need it, and it's working wonders for him right now, no doubt.
Absolutely. So I think he might be right now the hottest free agent, depending on his Impact contract status. He might have a little bit of a bidding war between WWE and AEW. We'll see what happens there. After that, we had an in-ring interview segment with Tony Schiavone interviewing Hangman Page. I desperately need to see this because I still haven't yet. But you texted me as it was happening. You like Hangman turning heel? Question mark. So what happened here in this promo?
And basically, and I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes version of it. Hangman came out, said that he's going to beat the living shit out of CM Punk. Basically, using terminology that was very heel-ish, which led me to have some speculations of my own. Heading into Forbidden Door, you want your top athlete to be aligned with New Japan in one way or another. As we all know, Adam Page used to be in Bullet Club. Now it seems like that bridge is mended. Potentially having the AEW champion as a member of Bullet Club again. It's Rampage did a lot of his best in his career, in my opinion. It feels like we're leaning that way.
Maybe. AEW, though, has had these tweeners a lot where someone who is a babyface for a match will have some more heelish tendencies against another big babyface. They could do that here. They've done it with Punk. Brian Danielson, came in big babyface, then he turned heel, and now the Blackpool Combat Club is kind of this tweener group. He's Brian Danielson, still kind of the badass heel that he was, but he's paired with the big babyface Mox, and he's showing a little more heelish tendencies, some of his more wild and crazy stuff, and they're certainly getting over as baby faces, but they're not being portrayed as 100% babyface here. And I think AEW they got to be really careful and walk this line sometimes. You certainly don't want people to flip flop back and forth between good guy and bad guy, but they could be going that route here with Page, where they're just healing it out a little bit so that they make sure that CM Punk gets as many cheers as possible at the pay-per-view where he's likely going to be going over. On the other hand, if Page does go over Punk here in this match and continue as champion, if they continue him as heel, then you're right. They've got a whole Bullet Club angle they can continue to go into with Forbidden Door.
And make no mistake about it, I don't see any plausible way for AEW to write a story where Hangman goes over clean on CM Punk without some sort of outside shenanigan.
Right. So, yeah, I can see it going both ways here. Maybe they're just healing him up a tad to make sure Punk gets as many cheers as possible at Double or Nothing for him to go over, or it is setting up a more complete heel turn within match at Double or Nothing. We'll see what happens. Very interested in this match all of a sudden. That would lead into a grudge match.
Hey. I got someone's knocking on my door.
Okay. All right, we're back. So that would lead into a match between Chris Jericho and Santana. Is Chris Jericho calling himself the Wizard now?
Yes. Stemming from last week's Dynamite where he threw the fireball at Eddie Kingston. I will tell you what, though, there have been some damn good memes that come out of this. I don't know if you saw the recent Jay and Silent Bob reboot where Chris Jericho plays an unsavory character in it.
No, I haven't. I knew he was in it, but...
In Jay and Silent Bob's reboot, Chris Jericho plays the Grand Wizard of the KKK.
Oh, God.
So somebody did the Wizard Chris Jericho graphic with his character from Jay and Silent Bob. Just some other things, like a couple 80s cartoon references that they've thrown out there with it. It's been pretty funny stuff.
Oh, man. What happened in this match? How'd it go?
Man, I'll tell you what. You forget how good Proud and Powerful, that's what they call themselves, are in AEW. But as singles competitors, that could have been a match in the Owen Hart Classic that would have been just as good, if not better, than FTR going one-on-one with each other. Of course, end of the match, it kind of broke down a little bit to a beating from the Jericho Appreciation Society. If I remember, I'm trying to remember, I'm blanking on this right now, who came out in defense. I want to say it was the Death Triangle. Regardless, it was a good match.
It doesn't say anyone. It doesn't say anyone came out, but Jericho used a low blow and the Judas Effect to pin Santana, and then the Jericho Appreciation Society attacked Santana and Ortiz like a pack of dogs, and Kingston was not there because of the burns he suffered last week. That's all it says.
All right, I'm confusing that with something that happens later on the show. My apologies. Yeah. Also, not to nut ride Chris Jericho too much here. The Judas Effect is one of the coolest finishers in professional wrestling. I know it gets a lot of flack for just being a spinning elbow. But it's also a legitimate move that if somebody would hit you, like if they knew what they were doing and they hit you with a spinning elbow in real life, you'd go out. So that's why it's one of those moves to me. It's so cool. It's been awesome to see how he's played with the Judas Effect based off of who he's tag teaming with or moves that are done in the match. But regardless, this match made you so pumped for what's to come with the Jericho Appreciation Society and Eddie Kingston and Proud and Powerful. Not only to mention, we are still getting Chris Jericho versus Eddie Kingston too. I mean, just it makes you want it so much more.
All right, up next, we would have the Varsity Blondes come out, and they would call out the House of Black. What would happen here in this segment?
They had, I'm blanking on his first name because I hate them both equally with a passion. The Harbaugh brother that is the coach of the Ravens was in attendance. Apparently, him and Brian Pillman were roommates together during their time. So he was there in support of Brian Pillman Jr. Brian Pillman Jr. comes out and he tries to cut an impassioned promo, but his mic skills just aren't there yet. And I love him to death. I think he's a hell of a wrestler, but just the mic skills are not there yet. He had the voice cracks going on. And then out comes House of Black. A big part of Brian Pillman Jr.'s promo was what they did to Julia Hart.
Right.
Well, apparently this black mist that was shot onto her face, that can mean a whole bunch of things. But apparently it has this thing that it's like corrupting her mind. And they thought it got her to the point where she was finally going to turn on the Varsity Blondes. They gave Julia Hart a chair after beating down Griff Garrison and Brian Pillman Jr. It looked for a moment like Julia Hart was going to swing the chair on Brian Pillman Jr. And then she had like a weird moment of clarity, which led to her being circled by the House of Black. And it was oddly, look, I'm all for intergender wrestling, but there was something about that segment in particular that made me feel really uncomfortable with what I was seeing. And that's saying a lot because I'm a fucking scumbag degenerate and it takes a lot to make me uncomfortable. But if I'm not mistaken, this is where Death Triangle came out to make the save for Julia Hart, which led into the Phoenix and Dante Martin
Pac, Ray
match.
Phoenix, and Penta Obscura ran out. Yep. And yeah, that would lead into the Dante Martin versus Ray Phoenix match. How did this match go?
Holy shit, dude. I've been sleeping on Dante Martin for way too long. Also, well deserved by Ray Phoenix getting the AEW Wrestler of the Week this week. That match, I had a feeling it was going to be decent, but they literally set that arena on fire and then pissed on the ashes. It was that good.
All right. Sounds like something I got to watch. After that, we would have Thunder Rosa call out Serena Deeb. This is a match I'm excited for. Thunder Rosa obviously will go over, but Deeb's a hell of a talent. One of the most underrated, I think, women talent out there in any company. And Thunder Rosa, of course, has done pretty well. What do you think of this here? And it looks like a whole promo between the two of them. What do you think of this segment?
Okay, so I thought the segment itself was longer than what they were anticipating it to be. It seemed like at points Serena Deeb was struggling to find something to say to fill the time in which they were given. However, this match by itself, without that really awkward promo segment that they had, is still a match to be excited for. I mean, let's look at it like this. You have CM Punk challenging for the AEW Championship the same night Serena Deeb is challenging for the AEW Women's Championship. The Straight Edge Society is alive and well.
Absolutely. Long live the Straight Edge Society. All right. After that, we would have a Ring of Honor Women's Championship unification match. The Ring of Honor Women's Champion Deonna Purrazzo would face the interim champion Mercedes Martinez. It looks like Mercedes Martinez would win to become undisputed champion. What did you think of this match?
I think this match is getting a lot of unjustified hatred within the internet wrestling community right now. Everybody loves to bust out their tinfoil hats from time to time. And they're talking about how Deonna Purrazzo was jobbed out to Mercedes Martinez because Martinez is a contracted wrestler with AEW. Whatever it is, whatever the case may be, you have to think, I know I have a contract with wrestler A, who is in the promotion which I own, and right. I don't have anything concrete with wrestler B. Why would I keep wrestler B on as my champion? Unfortunately, a lot of people like to think with their heartstrings versus their brains nowadays. So we've got led down a really messy path afterwards for what should have been, by all accounts, a match that was an awesome fit for the main event of a Dynamite.
Yeah, this I want to go back and watch this match specifically because of what you said there. But yeah, obviously if you have an issue with who went over, it's one of those weird things where the business has opened up so much that there really is, like you and I talk about the IWC, but there really is no IWC anymore. Everyone is, to some degree, smartened up about the business. It's all opened up. WWE will openly talk about, the things they're doing on their own network and on Peacock. So it's not like, or a wrestler will go have an interview about the thing they did a week ago and talk about it from a open curtain perspective. The business is opened up, so that leads to fans, rather than watching the show and taking the story in as it should be taken in, they're critiquing it as a story or as a show and as a performance, rather than just booing that person and cheering that person, or vice versa, because everyone has an opinion on what should happen now, which is a weird place for wrestling to be in. And obviously in this case, behind the scenes, Deonna Purrazzo doesn't have a contract with AEW yet, but she was the Ring of Honor champion when they bought it. So they've got her, they need her to do the job to Mercedes Martinez to put her over as champion. No problem with that. It's a business move. It's what they got to do. Maybe Deonna Purrazzo gets signed later on, or you can continue to have some matches here. But Mercedes Martinez is the contracted wrestler with AEW slash ROH. Of course you want her. But
Which, I would like to point out real quick. Everyone's feeling bad for Deonna Purrazzo. When she was released from the WWE in 2020, they said it was because she wasn't camera ready. She's gone on to become one of the top independent women's wrestlers in the world. Just because she didn't go over on an episode of Dynamite doesn't mean that she's not going to have her day again. And I think that people are so short-sighted that they forget that this isn't like something that's not possibly going to happen again.
And it was a Dynamite main event.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like they threw it on, in the middle of Rampage or on AEW Dark Elevation. It was the main event of Dynamite. They gave it its spot. They gave it its due. Yeah, I think anyone razzing on the fact that Mercedes went over just because she's the contracted talent, of course. Obviously. All right. We'll move on from there to AEW Rampage. I only saw one segment from here. Of course, that involves everyone's favorite slash fiction. Just me? Oh. The show started off with a tag team match. Toni Storm and Ruby Soho would go over Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter. What do you think of this match?
It's setting up Toni Storm versus Jamie Hayter, and that's just a whole lot of cake for one match that I can't wait for.
All right. After that, we would get Hook versus JD Drake. Hook would go over pretty quickly here with the Red Rum. Then Danhausen would come out. He would try to get Hook to tag with him or to team with him to go up against Tony Nese and he would slap Hook on the shoulder, seemingly friendly, but Hook would take offense and shove him down. And then Danhausen would kind of throw a bag of chips into the ring as like a birthday present or whatever the case may be. And yeah, as a birthday gift. I guess it was Hook's birthday recently. And Hook would pick it up and then drop it. And that was the end of the segment. I like making Hook look strong. He's obviously still going to be green. You don't need him in the ring very long. Make him look strong against JD and get out of the match. Look, the crowd's all for it, so who am I to complain? I guess it is everyone's favorite slash fiction, Hookhausen. What do you think of this?
Well, first off, I would like to say that they did not bury JD Drake in this match. They actually made JD Drake look pretty damn good himself. And the way he got caught in the Red Rum was the coolest way I've ever seen, because it was like he was putting him up for a slam of some sort, and Hook just countered it into the Red Rum and put him out.
It was a good spot, yeah.
However, I'm not going to lie. This match the ending made me like super emotional. Borderline any movie where a kid yells at a dog to get out of there because they can't keep him anymore kind of way. Because I just felt so bad for Danhausen, man. The goddamn chips. He brought a peace offering. And then you could see kind of a human side of Hook coming out, where he thought for a split second, like, man, I really am a dick. And then he just, fuck it, I'm hooked.
Yeah, I'm a dick.
In the ring and left.
Keep Hook serious, but all right. All right. It is what it is. After that, we would go to another Owen Hart qualifying match. Yuka Sakazaki, I'm probably saying that wrong, versus Riho. What happened in this match? How'd this go?
If I'm not mistaken, Riho went over.
Riho did go over, yeah.
Yeah. I think what it is they're trying to showcase more talent, as much talent as possible from the DDT promotion, in which AEW now has a working relationship with. I know that's not your favorite promotion because that's where the infamous blow up doll match came from. But
I've seen a
yeah,
lot of other stuff from them now, and it's
the Kenny Omega versus a 9-year-old match.
yeah, that among others, just insanely ridiculous stuff. I can't. Ugh, like
Brother,
that's insulting.
we are fans of professional wrestling. There is a Michael Jackson impersonator who's one of the top wrestlers in the world. Meanwhile, next Sunday in Tampa at the Orpheum, you can go watch a bunch of dudes dressed up like monsters in a professional wrestling ring with cities built up around them that they will smash each other on top of like they are in fact monsters. It's a broad spectrum, man. It's a broad spectrum.
And that's part of the business being so open. It's it's just this thing where okay, yeah, wrestling's fake. We can make it, and everyone knows that now. We can make it whatever we want. We can tell whatever kind of story we want. If we want our wrestlers to be big monsters smashing buildings, we can do that. If we want silly little demons, trying to tag team with our one of our most over badasses. Okay. I'm never going to be happy about it. I'm never going to be happy about it. As much as I like Danhausen outside of the ring and away from wrestling TV shows, as much as I like him just in interviews, I don't like watching him on a wrestling show. And I don't
By
like.
the way, just piggybacking off what you're saying there, how awesome was it that they got heel heat on Tony Nese by making it sound like he's going to challenge Hook and then swerving at the last minute going for Danhausen? This angle is going to be money, brother. I'm telling you.
Well, that was a little brilliant there. You get the obviously the chicken shit heel he's not gonna go after the guy who's gonna kick his ass or who could legitimately kick his ass. He's gonna go for the little piece of shit, demon who doesn't look like he could throw a punch over there. But all right, that'll do
Anyway,
it.
Rio went over. It was a decent match. It wasn't anything to write home
You got
about.
sidetracked with DDT. Yeah, all right. We'll move on from there to our next main topic, and that'll be we mentioned it a little bit there talking about AEW. There have been reports, I believe, by the Observer, and this comes by way of WrestlingInc.com. It looks like trio titles belts have been made by AEW. They've already got the belts. It's just a matter of time before they actually introduce them. And I think the way they're pushing, the way I was reading those results on Dynamite about the about the Blackpool Combat Club, the line that Excalibur said on commentary, is there a better trio than the Blackpool Combat Club right now? I think we will be seeing those belts very soon around the waist of the BCC. What do you think about this news?
And obviously, it was news that we all knew was coming, especially if you followed the trajectory of the elite that started AEW, their history with the Trios Tag Team Championships. Now that they own Ring of Honor, though, that brings up a little bit of a question for me of, are we going to get a potential winner-take-all six-man tag team match of the ROH Trios Champions versus the AEW Trios Champions? Because let's face it, I don't know exactly what the ROH roster looks like right now. That hasn't been established yet.
Yeah.
So, it's going to be intriguing. Uh, Lord knows we went over this a few weeks back. AEW has enough factions to make a trios tag team championship viable, um, without just slapping together a bunch of people and saying, "Hey, you guys are a team now. Good luck." So yeah, I'm curious to see where this goes. I'm for it.
I We'll see where it goes. I'm not the biggest fan of this idea. I talked about it before, obviously, but I just think it has too much potential to end up sort of like the WWE's tag team division, where it's just a bunch of teams thrown together because AEW's got some factions. They've got more factions than say a WWE does, but to have a full and complete division, I don't know that there's necessarily, you can get away with some things, but I don't know if there's necessarily enough when, okay, yeah, the Blackpool Combat Club are your trios champions, but there's only two other trios teams that are really viable to be competing for it anyway. What does it really mean? Yeah,
I would say that there's a lot more than that.
Okay.
And plus, you got to think Forbidden Door being open, you can have Bullet Club, Chaos, LOS or LOJ, LIJ. There's a lot of different teams that this belt can translate across. So
that's the one thing that could maybe make this work would be, and I hate the term Forbidden Door, but would be that, yeah, that AEW making it at least feel like, hey, yeah, these are the AEW Trios champions, but with the state of wrestling, any pretty much non-WWE, competitors can come in and compete for this title if they're good enough. And as long as you get that feeling where it's not just an AEW thing, but you got Ring of Honor now, obviously, and then you've got Impact wrestlers that can come in. You've got AAA that can come in sometimes. New Japan, obviously, with their relationship, and DDT. All these things. Hey, these are real world championships here. We're bringing in people from all these different promotions. Are welcome to come in, through the Forbidden Door and compete for our titles. It's not going to be like the WWE. That's the one thing that I think could make a Trios Championship work. You can make it at least somewhat artificially make it feel bigger.
And hey, look, Impact's already doing that, and we saw that last night when they had the Briscoes, who are under an ROH contract, come in and win the Impact Tag Team Championship last night. So it's an awesome start for an idea that may potentially blossom into something bigger than what we know as professional wrestling today. Am I putting a lot of hype on this? Absolutely. Do I think this is something that could be if people put egos aside? Absolutely. Are egos too big in professional wrestling? Does a bear shit in the woods?
All right, we'll go ahead and move on to our next topic. It is not, unfortunately, a happy one. You may remember we talked about before, the news was made about Tammy Sytch being involved in a fatal car accident on March 25th in Ormond Beach. The police were doing an investigation. They were waiting on toxicology reports and results. Apparently on Friday, Tammy Sytch was arrested and was charged with 9 different charges. 7 charges of DUI causing damage to a person or property, 1 charge of DUI causing death, and then another charge of driving with a license suspended or revoked causing death or serious injury. So obviously some terrible, terrible charges there. There was a report that came out today that said she had a blood alcohol level of 0.28, which is pretty darn high. I think that's 3.5 times the lawful blood limit. I think the legal limit in Florida is 0.016 or something along those lines.
It's .08. That's the
0.08, yeah.
blood alcohol level after the consumption of one beer.
Right, pretty much. So, yeah, that's a pretty high blood alcohol level there. And she did get out on bond. What do you think of this terrible news?
I read a little bit this morning about the circumstances of how the accident happened. It makes me wonder how fast she was traveling to come up on that stoplight like that to have actually hit the elderly person in front of her with such force that it actually had killed him. Uh, I think the biggest takeaway from this is something that somebody coming from the towing industry can't harp on enough. We live in 2022 where there is absolutely zero fucking excuse to be getting DUIs when you have things like Uber and Lyft, when you have the capability to designate a designated driver at the beginning of the night. There are so many reasons and ways that you can avoid getting a DUI, loss of human life, loss of finances, that you are absolutely 100% a fucking moron if you decide to take that path.
Yeah, for sure. It does say right here, and I'm going to put it up on the screen. I guess in April, or sometime recently, a fan was asked her at an event. A fan came up to her and asked her, or maybe it was on Twitter, about the accident and how fast she was going, whether or not she was drunk, and she responded, about 10. In other words, 10 miles per hour. She said she was going, since I was slowing down to a light. But he had a heart attack. Nothing to do with my seizure. So she's claiming she had a seizure as she was stopping. She was only going about 10 because she was stopping. And that the guy had a heart attack at the same time that she hit him.
I mean, that's plausible, I guess, given the guy's age.
Well,
but Tammy Sytch also has a history of playing a victim.
yeah.
She's done it in the past with many other situations. So what can you actually believe with this?
Yeah, I think that's pretty obviously ridiculous there. Obviously, they're going to have the police, there are traffic forensics. They can tell how fast she was going by the damage and by skid marks and things like that. Obviously, it hit hard enough that it caused the car she hit to hit the car in front of them, and that person was also had some injuries. So there's no way she was going just 10 miles per hour. That's for sure.
No,
Absolutely not. And obviously, it's been proven now that she had a blood alcohol level of 0.28. So, yeah. There was one more thing I wanted to say here. Oh yeah. That it looks like she'll be facing between 4 and 30 years. So this could be it.
Her
for
life's
her.
basically over. Yeah.
Yeah, depending on if the book gets thrown at her. All right, we'll move on from there to our quick jabs segment, where we talk about just run through a few quick stories that happened during the week. The first thing I wanted to bring up was Freddie Prinze Jr., the semi-retired actor, wrestling podcast host, and Jedi Knight Kanan Jarrus has come out on his wrestling podcast, Wrestling with Freddie. And I like Freddie Prinze Jr. I haven't heard his podcast, so I need to go listen to his podcast and see if it's something I could be interested in. He's also a former WWE writer back in the early 2000s. He came out and talked about on his podcast that he's had some plans in place to start a wrestling promotion. And he's on track. He was looking at arenas and what it would cost. He talked about the fact that he built a big lighting rig for an arena because he's already got that in storage because a buddy of his was selling one for cheap, a used one, and those things are crazy expensive, even used. So he went ahead and jumped on that, even though he wasn't ready yet. And then he's working on things. He's doing some Netflix stuff, but he's hoping to have a promotion up and running in 18 months. He did say he's got a 3-year plan. In other words, he can run the business, the promotion for 3 years before it has to start making a profit. What do you think of this news with Freddie Prinze Jr. and his promotion?
I believe that the more competition there is in professional wrestling, the better it is for not only the fans, but for the wrestlers trying to get booked. For Freddie Prinze Jr. to come out and have an 18-month plan and 3 years before the company needs to make a profit, that is one of the smartest ways somebody started a wrestling promotion in recent memory. Granted, really want to pull for Freddie Prinze Jr. just based off a story that came out like 2 weeks ago alone about him, with the whole putting John Cena in his place kind of deal. So yeah, I'm curious to see how this goes. Lord knows, with this WWE 90-day release schedule that they're currently planning, Lord knows there's going to be enough talent out there to run another viable promotion.
For sure, there's plenty of talent that is out there, and with some experience in either NXT or even AEW right now, as there some contracts are being run out in AEW. He's not hiring anyone right now, though. He does say, I expect, and he does talk about a little bit about it, that he's looking for a place. He talks about a commercial realtor that he knows that's already helping him look for some properties. Freddie Prinze Jr. lives in LA with his wife, Sarah Michelle Gellar. They have both not retired from acting.
Wait.
I said semi-retired. What's that?
So you mean Fred really married Daphne in real life?
Oh, you didn't know that? Yeah.
I didn't know. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was from the first Scooby-Doo, too, where they met. Or maybe they knew each other before then. But yeah, wow, they're okay. Married to each other. And I'm a big Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan. So, yeah, I love Sarah Michelle Gellar. They live together in L.A. I called him a semi-retired actor in the introduction to him. That's because he doesn't do a lot of movies anymore, and that's not because he wasn't getting casted. Same thing with Sarah Michelle Gellar. They like to stay home with their family. They like to stay in LA with their kids. They don't like to go and do a shoot in Australia or do a shoot in Georgia, or they want to stay in LA. So they do projects that basically keep them home and close to each other and close to their kids, which is admirable and respectable. So that's why, like, Freddie Prinze Jr. and even Sarah Gellar do a lot of voice work these days, primarily because it keeps them local in LA. They don't have to travel all over the place. I expect that this promotion will not be a traveling promotion. It won't do house shows. It'll just be a TV promotion filmed out of a location in LA, a warehouse or whatever property gets, just something, kind of a studio size almost, with, just a few fans. But he's go ahead.
With that, I mean, look how well that's working currently for NWA Power. It's shades of an old school studio wrestling show. It's wildly over right now. And then you got to look at Lucha Underground. They did that in LA in the Warehouse District. Yeah. Granted, if it wasn't on El Rey Network and it would have maybe got that Netflix deal that they were trying to pursue or something like that, we would possibly be talking about we'd still be talking about Lucha Underground today. So yeah, that's a genius idea on his part. Plus, with the uncertainties of life right now, with the words that we can't say, possibly making a comeback and people going back into lockdown, stuff like that, having a stationary bubble-like atmosphere to run a show out of.
For sure.
It's genius.
For sure. Yeah. I do think this could be the first show because Freddie Prinze right now has a deal with Netflix to produce some movies for them,
It's my
and
understanding
he does talk about that. Go ahead.
that's my understanding. That's what's going to actually be funding the wrestling promotion. That's why it's an 18-month process, because he wants to get the Netflix projects in the can.
Yeah, yeah, that's going to be part of his funding for that, or his personal funding. But he also already has an established relationship with Netflix through that deal. So maybe Netflix, do they want Netflix is in a place right now where they need content because you've got all these different streaming companies starting up. They're taking their content back from Netflix and putting it on their own streaming services. So Netflix needs more content, more weekly content, and that could be a place where they go. This could be the first, streaming exclusive wrestling content that we see from a promotion. That'd be very interesting. He does talk about wanting a TV deal, wanting the show to be 2 hours. The great thing about streaming is that you don't have to worry about commercial breaks between segments. You don't have to worry about length necessarily. You can go an hour and a half, 2 hours. You're not constrained to TV time. So that may be an interesting way to go. But he's talking about it like he wants to get on actual TV, which we'll see.
Which, if you want a gun for actual TV, more power to you. It's just that, in my opinion, look at the platform Netflix actually has. For years, Glow was one of the most popular shows on Netflix, and it was about professional wrestling. Yeah. And granted, there was more other things mixing it from a dramatic standpoint. You also had Lucha Underground reruns when it was in limbo from the El Rey Network on there, which was wildly successful on Netflix. There was also a possibility that Netflix wanted to bring Glow back as a standalone promotion for Netflix exclusive stuff. If you already have a deal with a company and they're really chomping at the bit to figure out how to get into a sports market, like Netflix has openly discussed about their desire to have sports on Netflix in the past, I think it wouldn't hurt to at least hear them out. But in my opinion, like you were saying, Netflix needs content. Netflix has the money. Let them pay for everything.
For sure. I think another potential spot, Stars, and they have a streaming thing as well. They've got, obviously, Heels is a big show. So there are possible landing spots, because right now everyone is content starved. Everyone wants more content for their streaming platform or for their channel or whatever the case may be. It's all about content right now, and wrestling is a lot of cheaply produced content. So we'll see how that goes with Freddie Prinze Jr. We'll go ahead and move on to our next quick jab here. Bret Hart was interviewed for Lucha Libre Online, and he was asked about the recent rumors about coming into AEW to manage FTR. He said that, well, I'm a happily retired guy. I'm a home guy now. There's not a lot I can do in wrestling. People say, what would you do in AEW? What would I do? Referee, manage, be a chairman? I don't want to be remembered that way. I want to be remembered as a wrestler. He did go on to say, talking about wrestlers in AEW, I'd be happy to help a lot of them, and I know a lot of them. I talk to a lot of them, sometimes by text or on the phone, and people call me up. I always got advice, and I can always pinpoint little things that can make a difference in a guy's match or something that he's doing. But I'm a guy that likes being home, so they're going to have to call me on the phone. I wish I could go do stuff more easily, but I'm getting a little older now, and it's harder, and it's getting harder for me to keep flying around and doing stuff, so I got to pick my days that I can do stuff. There's a lot of things I would love to be a part of with AEW and what they're doing. I know they got some great wrestlers there, and I have a lot of respect for the organization and all that, but right now I'm happy at home. What do you think about these comments by Bret Hart?
Good on him. He's earned it. He is a pioneer in what we know as technical professional wrestling today. his name still holds so much weight within the industry that if he wants to just sit at home with his wife and just enjoy the fruits of his labor from the yesteryears while looking forward into the twilight of his life, go for it. He's earned it. I respect him for that. And yeah, basically what it is you have to pick and choose your spots in life. I mean, people put so much emphasis on always chasing the all-powerful dollar and this and that. But the reality of it is you also have to find that time to make time for significant others, family, life, stuff outside of a job. And I don't know how much Bret Hart's made over his career, but I imagine with merchandising and things like that, he's pretty well set. So, yeah, man, you do you and you enjoy that.
Absolutely. Of course, Bret Hart will be managing FTR at a big-time wrestling event in June. All right, we'll move on to our next quick jab here. Cody Rhodes was on Broken Skull Sessions that released on Friday, talking to Stone Cold Steve Austin. I know you didn't get a chance to watch this. I did. I thought it was a pretty darn good interview here. He talked about a lot of things. First, he mentioned the Rolex that he had that was given to him, but he discussed Rolex that his dad was meant to give them, but there was a time when they were broke, and he didn't know until after Dusty had died. He found out from his mother because he was asking about that Rolex. Dusty had promised him that Rolex, and he didn't find out until after Dusty had died that Dusty had actually pawned that Rolex off to pay for Cody to get into acting school before he got into wrestling. So at a time when the family was broke before he had come back to WWE in 2005. So, and there are a lot of little stories with that. They go openly into AEW. They don't shy away from it. They talk about the start of that. They talk about him leaving AEW. And a really good interview that I think you and everyone out there, if they haven't seen it, should go ahead and check out. All right.
Yeah,
go ahead.
definitely gonna do that. But with them not shying away from AEW, I mean, we all saw the Broken Skull sessions when they actually had Chris Jericho come back on. So not surprising. Stone Cold Steve Austin is one hell of an interviewer. I'm actually, the older I get, I'm starting to think that maybe Stone Cold's interviewing skills is actually rivaling what his in-ring career was, because he's breaking some pretty big interviews lately, at least,
And doing
so
really
yeah,
good with them, yeah. And
really good, asking the hard questions but not being too pushy with it. Some would say everything that I would aspire to be as an interviewer.
there you go. Certainly someone for you to study. He would also talk about a lot about Stardust and how it got started, peak Stardust, and the things the points in time of Stardust that he liked, including the Stephen Amell run at SummerSlam that year, and then of course where he started to really dislike the character of Stardust and how it was pretty much killing him, and that led into how he left the WWE. So yeah, a really good interview overall. They start with the recent WrestleMania return, and then they jump back in time and go through his career up through AEW. Really good stuff that should be checked out. All right, that'll do it for all of our main topics. So we will switch into here the Buckle Bomb shows, WrestleMania Backlash preview. Backlash being tonight. So we'll go ahead and get started on that. We'll talk about the very first match here listed on the card. Something we are both looking forward to. Happy Corbin versus Madcap Moss. What do you think of this? What do you think is going to happen here?
I'm actually really looking forward to this match because it means it's going to be the end of this godforsaken storyline, hopefully. But at this point, there's no way around it. It has to be Madcap Moss. They're trying to put the jetpack on this kid for whatever reason, and it's not going to do him any favors by putting Corbin over.
Agreed. Madcap Moss goes over it, I think, pretty decidedly here. I don't see this being too long of a match, under 10 minutes. Probably a filler match somewhere in the card.
The other thing that I have to point out with this, there's that actors quit being funny when they go from being fat to getting super jacked. Look what people have said about Jonah Hill, things along those lines. So get the stand-up comedy bit away from Madcap Moss. Like, actually give him a personality, and just let him blossom into the superstar that I think Vince wants him to be after this. But please let this be the last time for a year they interact. Please.
Well, at the very least, whether they continue to interact or not, he needs to get away from this over-the-top, gimmicky character and slide into something. It can still be a big, it's WWE. They have bigger-than-life characters. It can still be that. It doesn't have to be this really super over-the-top, gimmicky, stand-up comedian character. Definitely we need to get away from that. All right. After that, we got Bobby Lashley and Omos with MVP in his corner. What do you expect to happen here?
Man, this one's a toss-up in my opinion. Are we trying to keep Bobby Lashley as the number one babyface on Raw allegedly, or does Omos need that win more? One thing I am excited for, Omos got the mouthpiece that he needed in MVP to actually take his character to that next level. So, man, I'm gonna go Omos.
Me too. I think that's the story that's to a certain degree being told here. Bobby Lashley beat Omos at WrestleMania. The night after that, MVP turns and sides with Omos. That's the difference maker in this match. Now that Omos has MVP in his corner, he's gonna go over Bobby Lashley. All right. Up next, we have AJ Styles versus Edge of the Judgment Day with Damian Priest barred from ringside. What do you think is going to happen here?
We touched on it earlier. Edge has to go over. They can't have the leader of Judgment Day lose this early in the buildup of the faction. And I think with, like I said earlier, Damian Priest being barred from ringside, that too sweet me softly lasted a little too shortly. I think Finn Balor's going to come out and act as the distraction for Edge to pick up the victory.
I agree, and you're going to see Finn Balor, the demon Finn Balor, as a part of Judgment Day. I think you are dead on there. I see that happening as well. All right. Next, we have the big trios match. Oh, wait, this is WWE, not AEW. 6-man tag team match. RK Bro and Drew McIntyre versus the Bloodline. I fully expect the Bloodline to continue their winning ways here. Hopefully this does eventually lead into a tag team unification match that we were supposed to get here. I'm not upset that this is happening because I do still think you want to get to Roman Reigns, and I'll keep harping on this until they say it's not happening. Roman Reigns, Drew McIntyre at Clash at the Castle in 4 months. You got to spread out time until then. Maybe you do still bring in a Shinsuke as a stopgap at next month's pay-per-view, and Drew McIntyre can take part in that feud in some way because you need to stretch this out a few months. But what do you think happens here?
So after listening to what you just said, that point put me at a point of contention. Originally, I was going to say that there's no way RK McBro doesn't go over here on the Bloodline, because I was thinking for the future storyline of, hey, we beat you. Just kind of like that taunting, hanging the piece of meat in the Lion's face. However, I could see the storyline where Bloodline goes over, leading into Hell in a Cell. The Usos are really feeling themselves, so they challenge RK Bro inside of a Hell in a Cell match. As we've seen in the past, the Usos throw on one hell of a Cell match. So I think we could get the title change, the unification match to happen at Hell in a Cell. Like you said, we get Shinsuke as a filler before Clash at the Castle. Maybe a little Bobby Lashley dispute there leading up to Clash at the Castle. Yeah, man. Bloodline.
Bloodline's going over. I think that's for sure. I think that's part of one of the things, and you see it a little bit less these days, but certainly back before, if the baby faces were on top in the go home show, then that usually meant the heels were going to win and vice versa. So I think we saw the baby faces on top at the end of SmackDown. So I think tonight the heels come back and they get the big victory tonight through whatever shenanigans that may bring. I think it'll further. I do think you're right. I forgot Hell in a Cell was the next pay per view. You could get that tag team unification match in a Hell in a Cell. That'd be interesting. That'd be a hell of a way to unify the titles. Um, we'll see what they do to further the Roman Drew feud because again, I still think they have to draw it out a little bit here. But again, you don't want it to be boring and nothing to happen with it. So they got to do something with it here. I don't think Drew or Roman they're not getting pinned. It's going to be probably Riddle to take the pin, maybe Orton, but probably Riddle.
Yeah. And, the other thing with that being said, I don't know if you've seen what happened at the house show WWE had last night. Roman got on the mic afterwards and said that his time with WWE may be coming to an end. So that begs the question. We all know if that's true, it's not because he's going to a different promotion. He's going to take The Rock's path. He's already been dabbling with it with his little cameos and Hobbs and Shaw.
I think that was a little bit of him being a heel too. Not that he doesn't have acting prospects out there; he certainly does. But I also think he's playing that up to be the heel. And of course, a lot of news aggregation sites are going to take that and run with it.
Yeah, which hopefully you're right because Cena proved for a little bit that you could do both. Granted, he ended up doing the thing that he said he would never do, unlike The Rock, but
it was time for John Cena to go away too, and he did come back, and he ended up being a pretty good babyface run last summer. So, that we'll see what happens with there, but I don't think you're going to see Roman Reigns go away anytime soon. All right, the next match we have is the SmackDown Women's Championship I Quit match between Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey. We already discussed how much we are not enjoying the lack of chemistry between these two. What do you think is going to happen here? You think Ronda Rousey finally goes over?
I think Rousey has to go over. This is her wheelhouse of a match. Basically a submission match.
Agreed.
The only thing that I hope doesn't get taken out of context when I say this, with an I Quit match, it's a little less structure. The performers are able to take a little bit more liberty upon themselves during the match.
It's no DQ.
I think we're going to see some hard-hitting spots in this match, which has me excited for it. Rousey has to go over. There has to be the rubber match for this run for Ronda Rousey, probably at Hell in a Cell, where Rousey's going to go over again, eventually leading into either Clash at the Castle or SummerSlam. We're finally going to get that women's unification match between Rousey and Becky Lynch. We know the history between them, the heat between them, so that could be an explosive storyline itself. So we'll see what happens, but I got to pick Ronda.
You said women's unification match. Bianca Belair is the title holder right now for Raw.
Oh my God, you're so right. I apologize. Holy hell, I forgot about that.
And I don't think she's dropping it back to Becky anytime soon. She's not. Right now, she's in the feud with Sonya Deville. Yeah, I think Bianca's going to have it for a while.
Clash at the Castle in Cardiff.
Possibly.
Because that's leading right in. That'd be leading right into SummerSlam, wouldn't it?
I believe so.
Yeah.
No, that's after SummerSlam. SummerSlam would be August, and then Clash at the Castle September 3rd.
All right.
But yeah, maybe SummerSlam, maybe Clash at the Castle. That's a big stadium show. But yeah, I think there's a thing you said that you brought up about this match being a no DQ match. Maybe that's a way to get around some of the chemistry issues. They can sort of gimmick the match up a little bit. As much as I normally don't like that, they can do that here a little bit to hide some of those chemistry issues and make it a better match than it was at WrestleMania. Hopefully, yeah, I do see Ronda Rousey finally going over here. And then they can stretch that out. Charlotte gets a rematch at Hell in a Cell next month.
You know,
maybe not, but
there are those rumors out there swirling right now that there's an impending draft coming up.
That's not until I think they've got it scheduled for November, was the rumor.
Oh, okay.
So it's not for a long ways yet.
All right.
I mean, that can always change. They can always move it up, but at the very least, it wouldn't be, I think the earliest they would have it would be July or August. All right. And then they've got listed here as the main event, at least the last card they have on the preview screen, Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins. What do you see happening here? I think it's pretty obvious.
You would think it would be obvious. But again, I can see Seth going over and them having the rubber match at Hell in a Cell. I really do. If you had Cody go over Seth twice in a row, it's not going to be good for Seth's character.
Good. Destroy that character, please. I don't think losing twice in a row to Cody Rhodes is going to hurt Seth Rollins at all. Especially that character, because that character just draws in so much heat for itself because it's so fucking terrible and over the top.
Agree to disagree. That's the hill I will die on.
And because Seth Rollins is so good, he'll be fine losing 2 in a row to Cody Rhodes. He can take that and just make him even more of a pissant, annoying character. I don't think that'll be a problem. It depends on whether or not they want to go to a third match. But I don't think they do. I don't think they do here. I think, all right, we've seen Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins twice now. I think he'll go over here, and then Cody Rhodes will move on to whatever's next. I don't think we're going to see this go on to Hell in a Cell. Because Lord knows we've seen enough in-ring promos between the two of them. I don't need another fucking month of that. But as much as I love Cody,
where I'm at.
So also, I don't think we're going to get that.
If you think Seth Rollins is good, I have a DVD that I would like you to borrow sometime called High Spots Wrestling Presents the Best of Tyler Black and Jon Moxley. I really think you would get a kick out of that. Not at all. You will hate it.
Well, I was just already like the name of the production company that made the High Spots Wrestling already annoys me. All right. Because now I just think of it as a fucking highlight reel of High Spots, which is not doing anyone any good. All right. So that's our WrestleMania Backlash preview. Any last words for the show or for Backlash tonight?
Tonight, starting at 7:30 p.m., I will be going live on my TikTok account at The Grizzly Villain. We'll discuss everything going on with Backlash. We'll have a couple of drinks, answer any questions about Qualified Human, the Buckle Bomb Show, or what we think's going on in professional wrestling right now. Unfortunately, tonight it's going to be just me. I'm sure Bobby's got some things going on with Mother's Day. One of the perks of living in a state by myself.
I've got no plans. If there's a way for me to join you on TikTok, I'm going to be calling my mom and talking to her, and maybe we do end up with some plans. But as of right now, I've got no plans. We could go live somewhere tonight for the pay-per-view for sure.
If you have no plans, I can get us set up through OBS Studio where we can each be remotely if you want to, and we can go from there.
All right, sounds good. So on let me bring up your screen here. On The Grizzly Villain at TikTok right there. Tony, at the very least, will be live tonight during Backlash at 7:30. I might be joining him. We'll see what happens there. All right, that'll do it for this episode of The Buckle Bomb Show. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Comment down below. Tell us what you thought of the show, of what happened in wrestling this week and what you think's going to happen at Backlash tonight. And we'll see you later. Tony?
Too sweet.
The only way to win it, I never miss that.